Hello and welcome to Fusion 289's videos on how to use Blender for Unreal Editor, specifically the static mesh side. Today we're covering how to use the UV unwrap menu, how to mark seams, how to unmark, how all that's going to work, how the UV unwrapping works, and how to set the texture in it. I'm not going to go into great detail on how to make a texture. You can see here there's one called stop sign. I'm going to be working on an actual stop sign for the game, the poll and all. Once I kind of get that figured out, I'll put that up on there, but that may take some time. Anyway, when you are using Blender, it's best to make your texture in something else. There is a method, and I'm going to try to find the link to it and put it at the bottom of the video for you on how to export a PNG of the UV wrap so that you can kind of edit it and make your texture wrap so you can tweak it and make it look the way you want. That being said, you can't really make it in Blender or use it in Blender and then import the texture, UVs, and all that from Blender. The texture just won't import right and it won't quite look. It'll be either too dark or stretched in the wrong areas. It just doesn't import from Blender into Unreal well. So bear that in mind. If you've already been working on one, I apologize, but unfortunately you're probably going to have to start over or at least start retweaking it. Anyway, let's go ahead and dive right into it. I have set up a UV tutorial here, and as you can see I have 3 cubes. They are all joined, so I'm just going to delete those. We're going to start off with the startup program, so just start up with a startup program. Again, I always delete these just because they don't really need them. Position this cube if you want to follow along and have the same thing just so we're all on the same page, or you can just make whatever you want up as we go along. Bear in mind if you make the piece too complex with too many UVs, you'll get some error messages, some weird stuff, so try to kind of keep it something simple that you can follow along with. Drop in 2 more cubes. I'm going to put the cursor at, let's see here. Yeah, 1.5, 2.5, 2.5, 33. There we go. I think that'll do it. No, that's not going to work. Drop another cube. Go ahead and scale that one up by 3 all the way around. Three 3.5 and then 3.5. Nope. There we go. 1.5. All right. Then go ahead and place another cube. Don't duplicate the first one. And there's an important reason for that. When you duplicate this one, it's going to have the same material applied, and we don't want that just yet. I'm going to go into that in a minute. Go 6. Go 1. So to recap, that is a 1 by 1 by 1 dimension. Set off at 1 by 1 by 1. This one's 1.5 by 3.5 by 1.5. And then this one is 1.5 by 6 by 1. Is that right? Okay, correct that to 1. Sorry. Should have been 1. I want it nice and even. Okay, so you've got this 3 cube set, and you may be wondering why they look 3 different colors. And that's because if we go to this little BMW looking icon, kind of looks like a tan version of that says material. You'll notice there's this circle with this checkerboard in the background, but this one doesn't. When we place cubes, or anything for that matter, they're going to automatically be assigned nothing. However, the starter program will already automatically have a material put in there. We don't need the material and we don't want it, so typically we're going to delete it. But for the purpose of this tutorial, you can just go ahead and remove it. But bear that in mind if you work with the base cube. Always come over here and just hit the little minus and get rid of it. You can add and remove materials by doing like that. just hit the plus sign, minus to get rid of it, or you can just hit new. It'll do the same function. There you go. Okay, so just leave it like it is. What we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and go into edit mode. We're going to hit spacebar, and we're going to type in mark seam, and that's the single, or sorry, not the plural, but the single incantation. You know what I'm saying. Also, go ahead and make sure you're on select seam, and so I'm going to select this forward face right here at the top. So space, mark seam, and now you'll notice that it is marked and it's red. Okay, so that's going to basically tell the UV wrapping of all these different surfaces which where to cut and then how to start spreading them out. So what I'm going to do now, go ahead and go to the top and hit duplicate window. This is the method I'm going to use. You can alternatively come down here to the bottom, right click here and hit split area, and you can kind of see what that looks like. If you do this and you decide you don't like this setup, you can just come over here to this one and hit join area, and it'll join them back. Okay, so go ahead and with that one that we've marked red, check the clear mark. And now something I want to show you guys too is if I go over here and I select this vertex and I start clicking clear, unclear, it's not going to clear this one. This is still the active vertex as far as this small pop-up menu is concerned. It has nothing to do with what you're selecting. It's what you were working with before. So if I go here and I mark this seam, that one's red. If I select something else, it'll go back and it'll clear that one out. So that's how you can mark and unmark the seams on those points. Typically, you're always going to do it on the edge form. As you can see, it didn't do anything, and that's because the edge wasn't selected. It's just the point that's selected. So you're always going to have to work out of that. Okay. Anyway, getting back to it. Select that edge right there. Go ahead and don't mark it. Make sure it's clear. Select all so the whole cube is orange. Go to your second window and hit Shift F10. Sorry, it's not Shift F10, Shift F5. Well, okay. There we go, Shift F10. I didn't have that window selected or working apparently. Anyway, you're going to get this grid. One thing and one key note to know about this grid, if you start doing manual editing of the UV map and you just kind of want to tweak something, make it bigger or smaller, you have to stay on the grid. If you go off of it and you go too far off and the edge is off the side, Unreal is going to just completely ignore that part of the UV map that is just barely hanging off. It's just going to leave it off. So then you're going to get a completely different error message. Let's go ahead, now that we have gone over that, select all over here and unwrap that. Okay. Now you'll notice it was this bright orange looking thing all at once, and that's because every one of these UV maps are all layered right on top of one another, and some of them are interconnected. That has to do with how we marked the seam and all that, and where that one point got marked. You'll also notice if I start just selecting stuff, it's going to go away until I actually select a face. Now you'll notice this is that face. Obviously it's not that shape, but like I said, what it's doing is it's just kind of unwrapping it and laying it in there. So what we need to do is actually mark the seams. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to check something real quick. There we go. Just going to clear that one. And anytime you make changes, like say I mark a new one, you can go to reset. It'll pile them all right back on top of one another. And then unwrap. There we go. Again, you can see how everything's just kind of layered on top of one another and it doesn't quite look right and it's all distorted. What we're going to do is we're going to select this one seam right here. Go ahead and mark it. And then select all. And then I want you to go ahead and unwrap it. You're going to get this thin thing. Because what it's done is it's cut this one seam here